So a very common question that I get is how long does it take before you can quit your day job and just do music licensing full time? Myself, it took me about 2.5 years to get to the point where my royalty checks were large enough that I felt comfortable that I didn't have to go into the day work world. I was doing some freelance gigs here and there. I had some video production gigs that I did occasionally to kind of help, supplement my income as I was going forward with this music licensing thing. But it took, basically 2 to 3 years. Now, what's the standard timeline for anybody? There really isn't one. I mean, I've known people that within 1 year of their first album getting placed, they started getting some massive placements, and the royalties were kind of ridiculous. I mean, they got, I think, kind of lucky just getting the right placements at the right time so early in their career, and they were able to get out of their day job within basically a year and a half, and that was it. Other people, it takes longer. It might take them 3, 4, even sometimes 5 years of just constantly, steadily cranking out music, building up a catalog, keeping their day job in the meantime, or maybe hustling on the side and doing some side income or independent contractor gigs just to make sure that they can pay their bills while they're also trying to focus as much as they can on the music. So it kind of depends, and it's all over the place as far as how hard you're willing to work, how often you're going to be cranking out tracks, like how quickly you can build up a catalog, and not just build up a catalog, but build up a high quality catalog, right? Making sure you're making quality tracks as well as quantity. But I really want to address something that a lot of people miss when they are thinking about, well, when can I quit my day job, and how much money do I have to make in my royalties to feel that I'm justified in saying no to the work world and just doing this full time? Well, a lot of people, they're always focused on one side of the equation, and that one side of the equation is how much money can I make? I need to make more money. I need to get more. I need to get more. And that's just sort of the American culture that we have here. There's just this fixation on making more income, getting more income on a monthly and an annual basis so that you can buy more things and get a bigger house and buy a car and whatever you want. But it's just always this focus, solely a focus on one side of the equation, which is just increasing your income. But there's another side of the equation that very few people even think about, which is minimizing your expenses, right? So if your cost to live, meaning just like if you have a rent or a mortgage, your utilities, gas for your car to get to and from work, and your groceries, let's say we just strip out everything else, and all of that only costs you $2,000 a month, which I would say might be on the low end for some cities, it might be on the high end for some places in the country. But on average, let's say $2,000 anybody can live essentially pretty comfortable for $2,000 a month. Well, if your expenses right now are including things that are not necessary, you have expensive tastes in toys that you like to buy, whatever, you go on a lot of vacations, you're always eating out, you go get a cup of coffee from Starbucks every single day, right? You have all these extra things that they don't seem like a lot, but at the end of the month, they add up to an extra $1,000. Or maybe at the end of the year, they add up to an extra $20,000 or, whatever, even more, $30,000. If you can learn how to live on less, meaning that you don't need a lot of things, and there's always like a hack for how to save money, right? One of the ones I was just talking about in my live stream just the other day was just the idea that, if you go out and get a cup of coffee every single day, which is just, I know it's a cliche, but I mean, think about it though. If you're one of those people that go out to Starbucks, Coffee Bean, whatever, and you're getting, even just a small regular plain cup of coffee, right? Not a Frappuccino or another one of the fancy drinks that are like $3 or $4, but you're just getting a cup of coffee, which is like, $2, $1.90. Sometimes I think these days it's even more than that. Think how much money you're spending in terms of if you had just made that cup of coffee at home for, I don't know, 30 cents, 20 cents. I mean, if you buy like an actual pound of coffee, ground or whatever, or whole bean, and you do it all from your home, how much more money are you saving? Because one pound of coffee is like, I think that's like $10 at the most these days. And how many cups of coffee can you squeeze out of one of those? Lots, right? It can definitely last you a couple of weeks. Even for me, I mean, I'm a daily coffee drinker, and one of those things can last me for a couple of weeks. So little things like that, you can start to stack up. And so the point of doing that, and not always focusing on like, how much money can I make? How much, can my royalties get? Can I get more? Can I get more? Start thinking about, how can you reduce your income? sorry, not your income, your expenses on a monthly basis? And how could you learn to be happier with less? Because what's more important to you? Doing this full time, making music full time, or having a whole bunch of expensive stuff that you have to always be paying for all the time? Because if you right now, let's say, have your monthly expenses around, you know, $3,000 to $4,000, but you can scoot that down to $2,000 by just eliminating a lot of stuff and crap you don't really need, and you'll learn you don't really have to have. Well, then your break even, or your financial freedom point where you can actually just do this full time and say goodbye to your boss and say goodbye to your day job, comes much quicker, right? Because you've just, you know, eliminated all these expenses that you don't really have to be paying for anymore. And if you're like me, the older you get, the more you really value your time and what you're doing with your life, way more than you do value things and possessions. So I'm not going to say that I live a very minimalist life, but I am not a, you know, bright and shiny fancy guy that has a bunch of expensive stuff all over the place, and I need a whole bunch of I have all these like expensive habits that I have to like pay for, and you know, luxurious vacations or whatever. You know, I take care of myself. I think that I am fairly well balanced as far as I'm not a complete workaholic. Probably I am, but I do like to take some balance away from that, some time away from that. And yeah, I spoil myself here and there, but it's very reasonable. It's within a budget. It's within something that works for me. And it's never to the point of, oh God, am I going to have enough in my next royalty check to pay for my expensive lifestyle? I don't live that way. I like to have 6 months of savings in the bank at least, right? So if something goes wrong, my royalties go down, something catastrophic happens, like I'm good. So that's what I want to encourage you guys to not always just think about like, well, how much money can you make and how big are the placements going to get? That's good to be excited and keep moving forward, obviously, and pushing out a lot of great tracks. But don't forget how much you can control right now. You can't control how much you're going to get paid in this industry. As much as you can steer it in a certain direction by having high quality tracks, working with great libraries, all the stuff that I talk about, you can't really control that, right? I can't control what tracks, what placements my music gets. It's completely out of my hands, right? And you got to be comfortable with that getting into this business. But what I can control is making sure that, you know, because in this business, just so you know, you really don't know what you're going to be getting paid in the next quarter. Things start to stabilize as you get further into the industry, but for the first couple of years, you're like on a roller coaster. You might make a lot, and then it goes down to almost nothing, and then you're making a lot again, and then it climbs halfway down, and then it boosts, it goes through the roof. So you don't have the luxury of knowing, like if you had a day job, oh, every 2 weeks I get paid this much money, and so you know what you can budget and what you can, you know, start spending before you get your paycheck and all that kind of stuff. It's not like that in this business. You have to, especially in the beginning, really cut down your expenses, really be frugal, and just, you know, anticipate and be prepared for the fact that maybe you're going to have a small royalty check in the first couple of years going into this industry, because everybody will have that sort of a feeling. But I will tell you though, you know, almost 10 years now doing this, at a certain point, you know, they are growing. My royalty checks are still going on the upward phase, but they're more stable now, meaning that there's not these wild swings, super high and super low. Like that starts to kind of level out. I would say 5-6 years into getting your royalty checks, you start seeing a little bit more steady growth, not like a massive, you know, 200% spike and then like a 70% dip. That's what you'll see in the first couple of years. At least that's what I saw. But as you get into it and your catalog gets bigger and your placements start to kind of really accumulate, and you just have a much wider net of placements and money coming into you at all times. Some tracks are getting syndicated in various countries, all that kind of stuff. That's when you start to see this sort of like a floor getting built that you're not going to go below that, right? And then it can kind of steadily grow from there, but you're going to start seeing more stability moving forward. But don't get lost in just your income and the royalty checks and all that kind of stuff. If you want to start doing this sooner and actually get this to be your full-time job, think about what you don't need, right? And start cutting that out of your expense, your monthly expenses today, as much as you can. And again, these aren't large things. We're not talking about having to cut out like a $500 expense that you're paying at one point. These could be tiny, you know, if you are at a job and you go out and eat lunch every single day, that's a lot of money at the end of the month. Even if you're only spending 10 bucks at your lunch, that's what, 30 days in a month, 300 bucks a month? It's quite a bit of money, right, that you have to now pay for that. Whereas if you had just made your own lunch at home, brought it to work with you, you know, it might have cost you $3 to do that, right? So what a huge savings that is. So just little hacks like that, just to figure out how to make sure that you're not having to support needless expenses. And that's going to get you doing this full-time as soon as possible.